Hi and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this video I'm going to be doing some quick little love notes from your person. This is going to be a message cards only reading, and there are 3 groups to choose from. Group 1 is the Amethyst. Group 2 is the Rose Quartz. And Group 3 is the Green Calcite. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing, and feel whichever group, maybe multiple groups or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to. I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you'd like to jump ahead. And up next is a close-up photo of the crystals to help you better make your selection. Hi, Group 1. You chose the Amethyst. So let's see, what does your person want you to know from their higher self right now? Okay, and we have, I will make things right between us one day. So if you're in separation with this person, they are considering making amends, trying to make their way back to you. It feels that they are very much haunted by your last conversation, your last experience with one another, a way in which they had overlooked your value and meaning in their life that is now starting to factor in as kind of a major regret for them. They may have had some things up-leveled recently in their reality that has caused them to sort of take stock of what they were prioritizing overall. And it feels to be an essence here of the ways in which they had discarded you or just sort of left the connection by the wayside. There's a sense of I left something very valuable behind, or I regret the direction that I chose to move in, because now when the illusions have crumbled, when the life that I had created for myself or what I thought I was moving toward that seemed to be wish fulfillment, even if it was just somebody that was like keeping their options open, sort of rejecting you or rejecting the idea of commitment, there's a sense of like at this period in time in their life, all they want is somebody stable in their reality. All they want is someone that really knows them at a core level, that has their back through good times and bad. And it feels like people around them have really disappointed them up to this point. And they're able to reflect then upon you and sort of what you offered in the past that they hadn't valued very precisely then, but they're very much yearning for that level of loyalty now. And we also have, I will come back for you. So kind of another confirmation there that they are trying to make their way back to you, trying to circle back around to work up the courage to open those lines of communication, provide some sort of explanation or apology. There's a sense of not wanting to have your story with one another be concluded. They may also sort of sense that perhaps you've been at a distance from them for quite some time. Time is running out, or there's a sense of almost like, if I don't make a move soon, if I don't reach out soon, then a window of opportunity that they either are kind of observing you from afar and they see or are starting to kind of get the hint that you might be single, you might be available. So it's sort of like, now's the time to make my move. Or this can even just be something if, you know, they aren't able to sort of watch you from afar, they may be sort of sensing that it's now or never. If you happen to be still available, that likely won't be the case for long. They might be sensing or even just kind of fearful that somebody else might be moving in to sort of take their place in your life, and there's a sense of kind of regretting that now, understanding fundamentally what they have now that it's gone, or now that it is at greater risk of something that will just kind of be chalked up to a loss, a life lesson. They also say it all comes down to timing. So for some of you, they may be very specifically planning to reach out. Maybe a special occasion is coming up and they're wanting to surprise you in that sense, kind of make that reemergence in a way that is special and notable. There, again, is this element here, though, that if they don't act quickly, there's an awareness that it'll be even more difficult to explain themselves. There's a fear that any kind of warmth or compassion you might have had for them at one particular point in time, that you've hardened your heart against them, that it's something that you're sort of tired of the shenanigans, you're tired of the back and forth, you're tired of waiting. You've essentially released this person or the expectation that there will ever be anything different in this situation than what you've experienced with them in the past or up to this point in time. And it feels like if that's the case, if you've sort of released this, you're looking, inward to yourself to kind of heal, repair the damage that was done, just focus on self-love, or even setting your sights towards new love. Maybe you started dating again, or you're just kind of you're ready to call in some sort of fresh energy. You're ready for romance. You're done with sort of the stagnation and the sitting in place or yearning and pining for this person. And it feels like on some level they sense that, they see that, they have felt that boomerang effect back to them, where you are no longer in pursuit. You're no longer just this kind of fixed point in their past that they could sort of tap back into energetically, or that they always just sort of anticipated you'd be there in the event that they decided that they were ready for commitment, or they'd taken you for granted in the past and just assumed you'll always love them. You would always hold them in a very kind of special or sacred place. And it feels that for a lot of you, this individual senses that they don't have that same position in your heart anymore. They aren't of as much importance that they once were. You've moved on in your life, or you've shifted your attention and focus away from nurturing this connection to giving this person the benefit of the doubt, or even a door of opportunity that they may have anticipated or sensed, or you'd let them know, like, I'll always be here for you. Or maybe you were very congenial when you parted ways with this individual. There's a sense of almost like that access point no longer exists, or there's a fear that it's like they've overstayed their welcome being at a distance from you, and it's not going to be so easy to kind of just come back in and pick up where you've left off, or you've shut that door. You're no longer waiting, and you're sort of focused elsewhere, which it feels like is putting this person in almost like a sense of panic. I've got to do something. I've got to speak now or forever hold my peace kind of energy. They also say, I know you're my twin flame. So for some of you, they literally could have run from that idea before, and they have now moved into a place of surrender out of denial. They're embracing that title. They're embracing the idea of a twin flame journey that you've been on with one another. If twin flame is not a title that resonates, they may just consider you their soulmate, or somebody very exceptional that they have met. You're irreplaceable. They've not been able to replicate the experiences that they've had with you, or the feelings that they've had for you in the past with other connections. Now in this sense that it's almost like they could be very much alone in their energy, very kind of regretting other people that they'd invested their time in, if there were third-party situations involved, or even just kind of keeping their options open. There's a sense of they let a good person go. They let a great opportunity go. They let a place where they at one point in time felt almost too comfortable with how much they felt seen, how much they felt valued, how deeply they felt for you. This person could be kind of wrestling with a tendency towards self-sabotage. They may have learned the hard way of their own kind of pattern to sort of call in or be gifted or blessed with like opportunities for beautiful things. And instead of going with the flow of that, almost kind of like looking for reasons or excuses, or being that wave which generates chaos and sort of causes things to tumble. In some way, that might have been an element that they're having to deal with the repercussions of in their life in general at this point, but then they're also kind of applying that same sort of principle or energy or idea to the situation with you, and the sense of like, this has been a transformative experience, but I'm right back where I started. My life has in many ways gotten no better since we've moved apart from one another. But then there's a sense of almost like, as much as they may have left you kind of smoldering in the ashes of this situation in the past, they're sensing that you're stepping into a season of empowerment, or you're very empowered at this point in time. You're like the phoenix from the ashes. You've risen, and this person is now sort of fearing or feeling that they're just going to be an unpleasant memory for you, not someone you will think of fondly, not an experience you will talk about in a positive sort of manner moving forward. They don't hold the same kind of cherished spot within your heart that they once did. So there's almost like a pressure to win back your trust, earn back your love, in a way that might actually be kind of motivating them to start to take account and take stock of, the shadowy aspects within that had caused them to sort of contribute to the toppling of this situation before. There's a desire to, stoke the flame once more, to see if the spark that existed at one point in time between the two of you is still viable. And if so, how can that energy be fed into in a way that there's like constructive change in the situation rather than a repeat of destructive patterns that you were in before. And they also say, I am always reminded of you. So more of that energy of being kind of haunted by this connection, haunted by you, signs and synchronicities. You're seeing your name everywhere, a flood of memories that may be coming through. This person may actually sort of sense that you're moving on, or maybe there's somebody new kind of with interest in you that is starting to make their approach. And energetically speaking, this person could almost feel like they're being kicked out of your energy. They're being ushered out in a way that is kind of against their will. They're feeling positive change start to occur for you in your life, a new chapter opening up that does not necessarily involve them, romantically speaking. And it feels like that might be something which is really instigating almost this sudden turn back in your direction, or they've reached a place of almost like rock bottom loneliness. Other things haven't worked out that at one point in time, that they had really thought was going to be their source of happiness. And there's a sense of kind of like, I'm not satisfied with where I'm at in my life. I don't have anyone of meaning, nobody that's important, nobody that kind of values me for me around at this particular point in time. And it's causing them to look with an energy of nostalgia back on what they experienced with you, back on what they had with you in the past, the way in which you used to look at them, that you used to interact with them, the way that you held them in a very loving energy. And it's a sense of like, I'm craving that, I'm wanting that. I don't want to just be sort of standing as a spectator in your life, watching you move forward, watching someone else make you happy in all the ways that I should have done from the start. They also say, I'm planning to surprise you. So more of that essence of someone that may be, plotting their next move towards you, scripting, choreographing what they are wanting to say, doing a little bit of recon on your life as far as like, are you seeing anyone? Are you available? What's going on in your life? If you've made any sort of substantial changes, they may be having to like track you down in a way. If you've moved, if you've changed your phone number, you've changed your email address, you've, disconnected from social media, or, just time in and of itself kind of taking you both in different directions and maybe putting in a lot of effort to sort of find you. Watch from the shadows, sort of gather what information that they can in order to determine like, what's the approach I need to take in this situation? What's the tone that needs to be set in order to kind of get my foot in the door in a way that is both kind of playing upon the memories that you shared with one another, kind of hoping to sort of grasp onto the good times that you had and lead with that, or infuse some of that essence in whatever it is they may plan on bringing forth in the interest of like rejuvenating the situation. But there's also an energy here with this planning to surprise you that they may be really focused on kind of tying up some loose ends, or sort of softening some rough edges within themselves, within their character, within their personality, or even dealing with the consequences of other choices that they've made in their life, in the essence of kind of like, I don't just want to come back around and tell you sort of like, I get it now, I understand that I love you, let's pick up our narrative where we left off and move forward. But there's almost a sense of like a surprise at some degree of like a level up, personal growth, acceleration beyond the person that you were dealing with formerly, that they're understanding that there needs to be some degree of accountability that's taken, some degree of like, these are the positive changes I've created and materialized into my life and into my reality. So if you're willing to give me another chance, if you're willing to hear me out, this is kind of the guarantee that I can provide that I've evolved to a certain degree or in a very particular manner. And so that in and of itself infuses in almost an essence of a variable that there's like a likelihood of change because they themselves have endeavored to create change within themselves. They also say, I'm struggling to let go of the 3D world. So more of that energy of someone who's grappling with the consequences of choices that they have made in their life personally. It feels like as unrelated to this connection, they may just be very dissatisfied with where they're at in their life, midlife crisis, or kind of just any point in life kind of crisis that they're going through at this point. Sort of like, what's the meaning? What is the value of this kingdom that I have built for myself? If I don't have somebody to enjoy that with, if it's just me here sort of sitting in the midst of success, or maybe they've even had like a turn of fortunes and success has fled from them. They've lost a lot in their life, and looking around, it almost feels to be something where there's really not anybody in their corner. There's not anyone that has their best interests. There's not anyone that is kind of with them during this struggle. And so they're looking back on the situation with you and the energy with you and the experience with you of like, you were a solid person. You were somebody that I could almost guarantee would be here with me in the trenches, and yet I'm walking this journey now alone at this particular point in time. It may also be a struggle for this person to sort of work up the courage to step forth to you, a fear that it's too little too late. Any kind of apology that would be presented would be judged based on the person that they were formerly, that the wounds that they have left within your heart or inflicted within your heart, that they've been just kind of festering for so long, they've crystallized, they've become the reality. They are now the association that you have with the memory of this individual, to where it's more than just kind of winning your trust back or expressing that they're sorry. It's almost this energy of they need to dismantle the vision and the idea, the version of themselves that they were when you were last dealing with them. That feels to be something that's also a challenge. How do I teach you that I am a different person? How do I get you to look at me not through the lens of the person that broke your heart, or kind of awakened your heart and then abandoned the situation? How do I get you to understand that I am, yes, the product of that version of myself, or the consequences of the choices that sort of unfolded from that kind of breaking off point. But then in some substantial way, or in many substantial ways, I'm endeavoring to be a different person, a better person, or I've become that in and of myself. They also say, connect with me in the 5D. So it feels like they are trying to reach out energetically, sort of probe the situation, tap into your energy, feel into what's going on. They may also be attempting to have telepathic communication with you, astral travel, just sort of trying to inject their energy in whatever way that they can. Test the waters energetically before they present themselves materially to you, to see, are you receptive? Does it feel resonant? Are you just going to push me away and sort of reject me? Or is this something where you will hear me out? You will give me the opportunity to sort of present my case, or present myself to you as a changed and evolved version of self, or somebody that gets it, that's been humbled by certain experiences, or has come to a deep understanding that they handled the situation improperly before. They were careless with your heart. They were inconsiderate of you. They took this situation for granted. There's an energy here of this person being aware that they were operating as well in the past at kind of like a low vibrational version of them, operating from kind of an unhealed version of themselves, things that they hadn't looked at, they hadn't addressed, that kind of just created wedges or difficulties in the situation between the two of you. And so it feels to me that there's a deep understanding that there is a better version of themselves, that they owe it to themselves and to a potential future with you to work and strive to embody, not as like a far off concept, a point on the horizon, something where their ego kind of tries to convince themselves and other people that they are living in accordance with that best version of self. But this is almost someone that understands now they need to do some heavy lifting within their life, make some difficult choices, or well-educated choices for themselves to kind of move away from lower vibrations, move away from denial, move away from ignorance, into a place where they're willing to kind of confront and sit with the nature of the reality that they've created for themselves, where in the present they're looking back on the situation with you with a deep and profound sense of yearning, and that they have themselves to blame in this circumstance for why there is this kind of yearning at this particular point in time. And so there is effort, it feels like, to sort of step into that higher self version, embody that higher version of themselves before presenting themselves to you in the material world. And they also say, you have me lost in my emotions. So it feels like this person may get very tearful when they think about you and the connection. It's a sense of like a sinking feeling. What have I done? What have I lost? I see your value and worth, not just as somebody that I'd like to explore the connection more deeply, but I see you as somebody that, is that fit, is that counterpart, is that kind of yin to my yang sort of energy, is the person that gets me at a core level. And I've chosen, or I've moved in the direction in the past of things that only sort of fed my ego. And I deprived my soul of this deep sort of nourishment, this deep connectedness with another person. It feels to be something that it's a hard pill for them to swallow at this particular point in time, that they don't have anyone else to blame for this current situation except for themselves in this matter. And it feels like there's a lot of pressure on themselves to both reach a place of forgiveness, understanding that they were working with kind of the tools that they had at the time. And although it doesn't excuse the past behavior, there's almost sort of like no sense ruminating. There's a need to step into a place of empowerment in order to be able to be more honest about the depth and nature of their emotions in a way that they deprived you of that reality in the past. There's an understanding that they've caused you a lot of anguish. And so it's going to take more than just a simple, I'm back, or hello, or I'm sorry. There's a need on this person's part to convey to you all that they held back before, to provide you with some kind of vindication if they, led you on in any capacity, or made you sort of question the nature of like what you were feeling, what you were experiencing with one another, ways in which they may have really activated or opened your heart space and then kind of just left you standing in love all alone, left you stranded, kind of grappling with all this, maybe on a twin flame journey, kind of navigating it alone, while this other person chose, the 3D lower vibrational route. And especially if you've detached from that, you've kind of closed that out for yourself and you're looking towards something else. You're looking to call in that, high vibrational soulmate connection, that person who is the, counterpart and equivalent for the version of you that you've worked very diligently to embody in the aftermath of this situation. This individual like feels that, and it's something where they're not wanting to be left behind. They're not wanting to be left out in the cold, although ironically they've put themselves there. And so there's an understanding that in order to kind of have the opportunity to share space with you again, or to be part of your future, it's going to involve drastic action on their part in terms of like emotional disclosure that they never gave before, that they've never done up to this point in their life. So it feels like there's a lot of pressure on them to kind of sift through some degree of just stagnation, or like a pity party that they're having at this point, in order to be able to be bold and open with their emotions and feelings, if they're able to kind of follow through on this desired action to create communication, in order to have like a chance to be able to sort of enter your world and your reality again. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got G, M, T, Y, O, L, C, C, M, S, V, O, D, X, A, S, Y, I, and K. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters, including a longer video variety or video version of this reading with more cards and more decks. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers and sun catchers, if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. You chose the rose quartz. So let's see what your person wants you to know from their higher self. Okay, and they say the thought of you still does things to me. So it feels like this person is in deep contemplation and reflection about the history between the two of you. If things have reached kind of a standstill, they've stagnated, or if you're in a total no contact with one another, there's a sense of them feeling that there's more to the situation, in terms of a resistance on their part to fully trust or surrender to the nature of their feelings. There's a sense of almost them feeling guided away from you in the situation for the time being or for a moment, because there's a sense of almost like whatever the next step is, whatever the next phase is in this situation, it requires them to confront something or to release something within themselves that they might not be entirely sure what that is yet. It's almost like they're waiting to confront some degree of a trigger within. They've gotten like a trigger warning, and they've kind of backed off, it feels like, in a way of like, I need to sort of capture whatever this is that's about to sort of leap out from my subconscious that might have been a factor in kind of undermining or driving wedges between themselves and other people in their past that they were romantically connected with, that speaks to kind of like a degree of importance or value that they place on this situation, or like the future potential with you, or the idea of even returning to your life if you're in a no contact situation with one another, that they're on the brink of some kind of breakthrough where they're able to sort of see very precisely the nature of some shadow that has interfered in happiness in their life in general, and that feels to be something that's very much important for them to kind of deal with in order to come back towards you, or to sort of get out of a stagnated energy between the two of you and move to a state where there's almost like more momentum happening, in order to give this situation the best opportunity to blossom and flourish and thrive in kind of more of a long-term future potential. So it feels like you've activated something within this person, emotionally speaking, that it feels like it's very perplexing for them. It's more than just, I have feelings for this person. There's almost the sense of them understanding this connection can be, or maybe already has in certain ways, been very transformative for them. And in order to keep that momentum going in a positive manner, in a healthy manner, in a constructive manner, it requires them at this particular point in time to sort of offload or unshoulder some sort of burden and wound that they are holding from like past romantic situations, or even a tendency toward maybe an avoidant attachment style, or even clinginess that could have been sort of a factor in previous situations that sort of didn't allow the space that was necessary for like true growth to happen, could have created stagnation in and of itself. So it's something that they're kind of like looking at. They're waiting to kind of get a deeper understanding about where they have fallen short in romances in the past, or in this situation in the past, so that they can give something more to you than they've been able to before, that they've given to other people before. And they also say a lot of signs are pointing to you lately. So this person could be in contemplation and kind of like a prayer mode right now, sort of thinking about what is the next step in this situation. What do I need to do in order to be able to offer this person the fullness of my heart? Is this a circumstance where I should trust my heart, or do I need to check in more with my logical mind? Am I overlooking any kind of like red flags and just sort of idealizing the future potential potential in this situation. They're very much, if they've gone quiet or their energy has kind of, the volume's been turned down on that in some sort of way, this doesn't speak to disinterest on this person's part. It almost feels to be something where they're trying to look at this situation from all facets. You've impacted them emotionally to such a degree that it's almost like they want the next steps towards you to be very calculated, but not in a manipulative way, in a sense of like they want to check in with the wounded part of them. They want to check in with, the parts that need certain things emotionally, need certain guarantees or a sense of security, maybe even materially or practically speaking. But there's a trust, there's a sense of flow in terms of like, you haven't just crossed one another's paths by accident. This situation, if they, move in a different sort of way, kind of more in a flow state, less in a place of trying to control outcomes than they have in other situations, this connection has the propensity to lead to something very beautiful between the two of you. Or even if this is someone you're at a distance from that's planning on kind of returning to your life, there's almost a sense of, I want my return to be much more magnificent than the way in which either you just drifted apart from one another and it kind of just stalled out and sort of left a lot to be desired, or if there were any hurt feelings. There's almost a sense of it needs to be more than just an I'm sorry, something that kind of represents them taking steps upward in their life to kind of reach you at that higher plane and plateau. And that feels to be the focus right now, internally speaking. Prayers or kind of like questions that they're sort of asking about this internally to their guides. It feels like they're getting a lot of signs about that. They're getting a lot of confirmation that it's safe to trust this. It's safe to participate in this situation. It's safe or in their best interest to create movement forward rather than to back away or disconnect from you in the situation. And they also say, you're all I've ever wanted. So they do recognize your value. They cherish the time spent with you, the experiences that you've cultivated with one another up to this point in time. It feels like every time they learn something new about you, or if they've taken steps back from the situation before, only to kind of insert themselves once again, it's almost like subtle changes, even over the course of just a couple of days or, a couple of hours, sort of directing their focus elsewhere. They're able to see and appreciate you from an entirely different light. It's almost like ways in which they kind of come to a deeper understanding or recognition within themselves of sort of who they are and what they want. And then they come up from the depths. They come up for air almost. They find you right there. You're right there keeping time with them and your own sort of journey and the ways in which you are presenting, the ways in which you kind of match or equate what it is that they have been seeking in like a long-term partner or the type of person that sort of fits their future rather than someone that is reflection of like wounds and of their past. You check off all the boxes for this person, and that might be something where they're almost checking in with themselves at this point in time, trying not to lean into a space too much where they're running away from this as like it feels too good to be true. They're mindful of that. That might have been a tendency of theirs in the past, or maybe they did that with you before. If it's a no contact situation, it felt too good to be true, and so they took off in the other direction. And there's a sense of this person wanting to invest more trust in the situation. It's not that it feels too good to be true. It's almost something that aligns with like the best of what they've wanted, that blessing is here, that kind of like wish fulfillment is here. And rather than missing out on this opportunity or allowing any more time to go by where they're still sort of wrestling with doubts, there's an energy of, I want to give more to this situation in a way that honors kind of what I recognize, what I see, what I've experienced as a very unique and almost like a sacred bond between the two of you. And they also say, I'm situating this karmic situation. So that really confirms that idea of something that they're almost, they themselves are like lying in wait for a trigger to emerge, or some kind of a deeper way of understanding, maybe a tendency or trend within themselves to self-sabotage, leave situations when they're going really well, to kind of, question sort of good things that happen. This person may struggle with like a deep-rooted lack mentality that's almost like a karmic element. It's like a third party in and of itself, this kind of inner critic maybe that questions their worthiness or how deserving they are of being seen, being appreciated, having like a healthy, high vibrational connection. So it feels like something that it's, for most of you, this isn't a karmic situation in terms of like a third party, an active person in their life, but it certainly could have to do with wounds left behind from people that they dealt with before, ways in which they had, maybe ruined connections before, or they'd invested in people that just sort of fed a state of woundedness and had turned their back or pushed away people that actually were good for them, actually sort of fit a higher version of themselves. They chose kind of the low road and experienced low results as a consequence of that. And so they're not wanting to kind of present any toxicity in this situation, or they're kind of like being very mindful of sort of their past mistakes, ways in which they acted it not in accordance with their highest good, or did things that sort of sabotaged other situations in their past, or even when they were dealing with you in the past, if this is like a no contact situation. And there's an element of like, I want to shed that part of myself. I want to overcome that part of myself that can't just participate or won't just participate in something that is very beautiful, that is in a flow state, that is kind of bringing out the best in both of us. I want to make sure that I'm doing my part in order to enhance that, in order to feed into that in a reciprocal manner. So it feels like pulling away their energy, or even kind of remaining at a distance at this point in time. It's with they've got their eye very precisely, almost like on a trap door within their shadow, just waiting for something to pop up, waiting for something to come up, waiting, almost kind of like waiting for that inner critic to just open its mouth and just say something. They're very aware that there is like a tendency, there's a threshold within them, that once kind of things get to the certain level of being good, that's the time when sort of these little devices within, these kind of clever aspects of themselves kind of seek to undermine, play the puppet master, and sort of pull on those fears, like the fear of abandonment, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of being manipulated, and have routinely in the past, or even in this situation up to this point in time, have caused turbulence right when things were going well. And so they're wanting to curb that in order to be able to have more of a stable and high vibrational future with you. They also say, no one can change my love for you. So this again speaks to somebody who is very directly confronting like inner demons within themselves, wounds within, the inner critic, kind of, patterns and programs from people that hadn't been able to appreciate and value what this person has brought to the table in past romances, inner child wounds that kind of have created some sort of a voice within themselves that does not allow them to kind of participate consistently, or to believe that good things are possible, good things can last, that they are worthy and deserving of good things, that the quality of love they hold inside is good enough for anybody else. So there's almost a sense of like them protecting this connection, or protecting the future of this situation from themselves, from this part of themselves that is very cunning. Kind of the voice of dissension is coming from inside of themselves, and they're very much aware of that, and very much kind of like positioned to sort of neutralize that when it arises. It may have already started to create some degree of kind of uneasiness within this person. It feels like they're self-aware enough that they know the signs, they know the tells of when they're getting ready to run, when they're feeling like all the closeness and the beautiful energy with one another, that it starts to feel unsafe. They're aware that it comes from a wounded place within. And this is somebody who it feels like is very determined not to let this situation crumble in the same way other situations in their past have, due to these wounds being unchecked or unacknowledged within them. They also say, I've been having dreams of you. So it feels like something that you are their dream person. You are the type of person that they want to kind of build that dream life with. And this is someone who's self-aware enough to understand that it requires them to kind of get a handle on, or tie up some loose ends as far as like emotional baggage is concerned, to make on their part, to make sure that they are bringing to the table the best of themselves, that they're not just bringing a lot of things that they're in denial about or that they're unaware of, or kind of looking on past situations and purely placing the blame on other people. There's a sense of almost like, even in the worst situations they've been in romantically, or difficulties from kind of their childhood, or different instances in their life, they're understanding that that's left some kind of residue. It's left an effect. It's left some scars, and they're kind of wanting to tend to those things in order that they're not kind of bringing you into their life, or building more closeness between the two of you, with a sense of almost like an unspoken expectation that you fix things within, or you feel some sort of void, or an emptiness within, or ways in which kind of, again, the good energies between the two of you, where they start to really question that they start to sort of erode that foundation between the two of you from the inside out. They're wanting to like avoid that at all costs. And so this is almost the sense of kind of like, I want to build that dream life, that dream circumstance with you. And I understand that it requires me kind of being very proactive at this particular point in time to sort of wrangle in tendencies that I have within myself, historically speaking, to, kind of move away from trust in love and kind of choose the path of fear. And they also say, am I deserving of your love? So there's that confirmation of like a lack mentality, feelings that kind of the love they hold inside is somehow broken, it's somehow tainted, it's somehow not worthy of other people. This could be somebody that has operated in their ego very extremely, because they hide kind of a sense of low self-esteem. They may come across as very confident, but it feels to be somebody that has a lot of inner childhood wounds, or a lot of deep sensitivity, and the ways in which they feel things very intensely, they may not have had the tools or the coping mechanisms to honor that part of themselves. They may have kind of just stuffed wounds away and carried forth in their life. However, those wounds are baggage which still accompany them. They might have really started to feel kind of in the good times that you're sharing with one another, these fears sort of coming up. Like, if they let you in closer and you get to know the real them, are you just going to judge and kind of run in the opposite direction? Or like that inner critic sort of getting on its soapbox and kind of convincing this person, or trying to convince this person that in some way they should question your intentions. They should question, like, if this is too good to be true, that whatever is kind of the harmony that they're experiencing, or the way in which they're maybe even glowing in the aftermath of kind of experiences with you, it feels that there's a critical part of themselves that really just mocks them for that, or tries to humble them, or sort of break that down in some sort of manner, to feed off that higher vibration and kind of bring them into a place of despair a little bit. And so it feels to be something that they're aware that this is a tendency, or it's already started to creep up. And so they're very focused at this point in time on muzzling that in some sort of way, to be able to participate more openly with you, or even start to open the lines of discussion where they're letting you know this. They're kind of inviting you in and saying, can you be patient with me? Can you help me through this? I need you to understand this component of myself, so that you have maybe a more reasonable expectation of how the situation will progress forward, or kind of anything that has been sort of a behavioral pattern up to this point in time. They also say, secretly, I am anxious to see you. So this is somebody that it feels like really has high hopes for what the future of the situation can entail. You make them feel alive inside in a way that nobody has, or that they haven't felt in years. It's something where they are really valuing and cherishing the long-term potential in this situation, or if it's someone at a distance and they're needing to convey an apology, they're really putting a lot of importance on how that is delivered, making sure that they've done their due diligence to kind of clean up the shadow as best as they can, or to start to map that out, or get to know that terrain more precisely, so that they're putting their best foot forward. They're being their most authentic self. They're self-aware enough to where any kind of efforts to sort of take the lead in this situation, that they're not just leading you in this connection astray, that they are doing what they can in order to kind of lead by example, almost, in terms of, I'm going to own up to my personal shortcomings or, wounds within that have kind of caused me to sabotage the nature of my own happiness and beautiful things in my life, because they're very invested in the idea of like, I feel that we have long-term potential, or this could work out in a long range sense. And so I need to kind of tend to some things within me in order to be able to give you the most in this situation. They also say, I'm seeing through the illusions. So again, somebody who's taking ownership for themselves, their conduct up to this point in time in the situation, anything where they may have come on very intensely and kind of just put the brakes on, anything where there's almost like again, like a tendency within themselves to kind of question, undermine things that are good, starting to really understand that these good things don't just fall apart, that there's something within themselves that almost starts to chip away at a foundation, or even kind of back away from situations when there's closeness, when there's intimacy, when there's a sense of like we're seeing eye to eye, or we're connecting very deeply. In their past, it feels like at those key moments is exactly when this person would sort of like vacate the scene. They'd drop the situation, or they'd start to really lean into this place of the inner critic kind of saying, you can't really trust this. That's just wishful thinking, or it's like a fairy tale. It's not really real. You need to just focus on the practical. Start to look for the angles. Start to look for, the catch in the situation. What you're not seeing that kind of is an important detail in kind of a negative sense. All of that sort of hypercritical, hyper-vigilant behavior on this person's part as far as romance is concerned, they're seeing through that as just not a mechanism of like, okay, I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to have the wisdom of the past and have these healthy boundaries up. This is a sense of almost somebody that pushes people away, or has a tendency to kind of lock themselves away into like a fortress within. Someone who wants deep connection and yet is almost content, or is addicted to a state of like profound loneliness within themselves that is self-generated in certain ways. And so it feels to be something that they're very much aware of that. They're aware of that as a pattern within, but they're not just going to roll over and sort of say, that's just how it is. That's just my pattern. I'm just beholden to that. It feels like they're very proactive in trying to puzzle out a solution to kind of work around that or transcend it in some way. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got A, E, N, Y, L, R, J, P, S, M, C, H, Z, S, W, W, D, D, V, and O. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters, including a longer video variety or version of this reading that involves more cards and more decks. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. You chose the green calcite. So let's see, what does your person want you to know from their higher self? they say you're the only person who truly gets me. So this person senses like a kindred spirit, deep soul connection with you. There's an essence that you help to inform this person more precisely about little subtleties as far as who they are. They're able to embody more of their authentic self in a way that is fearless and self-loving as opposed to self-loathing when they are with you. You understand them, you resonate with them, you get their jokes, you get their perspective. Conversations that the two of you have are very much in alignment, in sync with one another. This is somebody who feels very challenged by you and yet very enriched by the level of growth and expansion that they've experienced since coming into contact with you. You've opened their mind to seeing the world or seeing themselves in a very different way, and it feels to be something that they almost can't get enough of you. They can't get enough of this energy. They can't get enough of this connection. They may almost be trying to deliberately sort of put the brakes on this situation because they're trying not to like overindulge in your energy and sort of lose sight of other things that are important in their life, or there's an essence of them not wanting to like come on too strong or overwhelm you, give you any kind of idea that they are just sort of there to like drain your time, suck your energy. There's a sense of almost like wanting to savor the situation between the two of you, but being drawn even more deeply into it. They want more. They want more of your time. They want more of your attention. They want to create more closeness in this situation, because in the times where you're apart from one another, just kind of living your life, it feels to be something where they reflect often as far as like things you've talked about. They find themselves thinking about you at sort of random moments throughout their day, wanting to call and like share good news with you, or seeking you out for advice. It feels that they value your opinion more than like other people they've encountered, because you speak to them at a soul level, or you resonate on the same frequency, or your ideas of life, of the nature of reality, of kind of your future goals and plans, maybe even a backstory that you share in common with one another. All of this helps this person to feel very safe, very secure, very appreciated and valued for kind of a more well-rounded version of who they are than has been able to be like accessed or appreciated in other romantic connections or even sort of other friendships. I can't take this anymore. So this person may be on the brink of confessing deep feelings for you, confessing feelings for the first time. If this is just a platonic situation, there's a sense of they have held back, kind of letting you know how much you mean to them up to this point in time, and that they're on the brink of kind of revealing that, maybe making more of a solid commitment with you, or taking that commitment to the next level. It feels that it's very hard for this person to sort of keep healthy boundaries in place. So maybe somebody who's kind of like prone to obsession within romantic connections, or when they love deep. They go all the way. There's no sort of half in and half out. And so it feels like any kind of strategy that they're trying to employ as far as a measured approach is concerned, it's excruciating for them. It's almost taking a lot of their willpower, not just to dive in completely with you at this point in time. They also say, I'm really bad at commitment. So that can speak about somebody that has a tendency to rush in head first, move too quickly. In the past, they've kind of just listened to their heart and they've not taken logic into account. This may be somebody who has a tendency towards codependency. They lose themselves within connections, or they become very enmeshed with other people, romantically speaking. And so it feels to be something they're aware of that trend within themselves, and they're trying to take a different approach in this situation so that the two of you are able to kind of keep and maintain your own autonomy, your own sovereignty, your own independence, rather than kind of like getting so wrapped up in kind of the higher potentials within this situation, that you lose sight of other things that are important to you as individuals, that your individuality dissolves and it just becomes like a shared identity within this circumstance, because they feel very drawn to you. They feel very pulled into your light. They feel very much like they could talk to you forever. They could talk to you for hours. You're somebody who, again, just kind of gets them at a deep core level. And that might even be kind of like opening up a level of excitement. I need to explore all this hidden potential within myself, in order to kind of bring forth a more well-rounded version of me into the future of this situation, because I feel you're somebody who could appreciate those things other people in my past overlooked or didn't like, or that I hid out of like a sense of guilt and shame, or just not kind of feeling very seen and understood. They also say, I want to dedicate a song to you. So music may be something very significant to this connection, or you set a different kind of tune that plays within this person's heart than the ways in which they have felt with other people. It's a sense of like a harmony, a melody between the two of you that's very exclusive. It's very exceptional. It's almost kind of like your words speak directly to this person at a heart level, or they almost feel like they're dancing through life in the aftermath of even just a few moments spent in your company. There's a sense of wanting to co-create with you, wanting to collaborate with you as far as like getting to know one another on a more deep emotional level, and sort of saying, how do you need to be loved? What do you need in order to feel very seen and appreciated? And in that sense, there's almost kind of them not wanting to just sort of put all their own needs at the forefront of this situation, but there's almost a sense of like, how do you need to be loved? What can I sort of give or provide or bring forth in this situation that allows you to feel very cherished, very precious, in a way that maybe this is someone who's very highly romantic. They may be somebody who writes love songs for other people, is very kind of like poetically inclined, or you bring that out of them. You bring this romantic out of this person, and it's something that other people in their past hadn't been able to fully appreciate. They hadn't felt that way, that kind of mechanism, or that element within themselves. It wasn't activated, and yet it is activated in your presence. It's brought forth up into the sense of this could be like a fairy tale romance in real time, in real life, because of all the ways that even on like a practical level, you get one another. It flows very well with one another. It's something that's very compelling towards one another. They feel very compelled in your direction. They also say, I've thought about living together. So there's more of that energy of wanting to kind of join forces with each other, wanting to build towards more stability and security within this situation, wanting to create a higher level of commitment with you, or to express feelings for the first time, or reveal deeper feelings, long-term plans and potential. The idea of that kind of deepening that connection, creating more of that solidified bond between the two of you, it fills this person with a sense of anticipation, that beautiful things can come of this, or kind of like the type of connection they've sought to have with other people that they've not been able to find up to now. It's accessible with you. It's possible with you. You're like the dream person. It's like lover and best friend energy all in one package, and it feels to be something that it's very exciting. They're very engaged in the idea of what does the future hold in this situation between the two of us. They also say, I've been telepathically communicating with you. So that could be like literally they are sending you telepathic messages. They're thinking about you so much that like thoughts become things. And that might be kind of manifesting in the form of a lot of signs and synchronicities you're seeing in relation to this person. A lot happening in the dream space where, maybe they're even kind of showering you with that sort of emotional energy, or those deeply kind of romantic experiences that they sort of wish that they could have with you in the material sense, but that they've like held themselves back from, or you're just not at that place of like getting to know one another yet to where that would be possible, that would be reasonable in a way. There's a sense of them kind of rehearsing something that they want to ask, like a big question they want to ask, ways in which they want to sort of take the conversation to wider range potential between the two of you, focusing on things that are more like far out and distant on the horizon in terms of like, where do we see ourselves in 6 months? Where do we envision this connection in a year? What are the intentions overall in this situation? They also say, I can't stop spying on you. So yeah, they're thinking about you a lot, thinking about you in the times when you're apart from one another. Kind of a dreamy energy with this, sort of looking at your pictures, looking at social media posts, looking over old conversations, or even just the sense of kind of like that telepathy, trying to tap in energetically speaking to express or convey or almost like send you those waves of love that they've not been able to provide up to this point in time, that they've held themselves back from kind of that full reveal. And yet in that kind of liminal space or behind closed doors, they feel very comfortable directing that attention onto you in a way that there's almost a sense of like hoping that you don't know, but somehow hoping that you do pick up on it. Especially if you're very spiritual and you've discussed that with this individual, then there may be a part of them that's kind of like, I hope they're picking up on my telepathy. I hope that they know that I'm directing all this attention to them. They're not trying to mask or hide their energy in any kind of way. It's almost, here's this full disclosure. This is literally me sending you vibes, reaching out to you energetically. And I hope that you understand that. I hope that you perceive that very definitively, because it's almost just like a prelude of something that they want to present in the material world. But at this point in time, it's almost like in order to sort of preserve or allow more kind of like balance to happen within the situation, this is what they're most comfortable with doing. There are no limitations as far as that energetic bond is concerned. No limits that they've placed upon themselves. Any limits that are there, they're trying to transcend those in a way, not intrusively, but just in a sense of like, so you are not kind of left wondering, what do they want? Is all this raw potential and chemistry? Is there something more that can happen between the two of us? Or am I just kind of imagining things? Am I just leaning into a place of wishful thinking? It feels like before they sort of express that to you verbally or outwardly, this person is almost like hoping to present that to you energetically, hoping that you get it, that you feel it, that you're picking up on that. They also say, I have the desire to see the world with you. So this can speak about, again, like making a solid commitment, traveling outside of the bounds of whatever the nature of your relationship has been up to this point in time. A desire to kind of create a new sort of future with you than they had envisioned for themselves in their life prior to you coming into the equation, prior to you entering the scene. There's a sense of you bring them a higher perspective of kind of what love can be, layers of almost feeling that it's very destined that you've come into their life. You've sort of restored hope, or you're almost you're like a last hope for this person, that they could have such an intense and kind of all-encompassing connection with another person. You're the type of person that they've almost like searched the world hoping to find, and here you are. You're either were someone that was hidden in plain sight, or now they have found you, and there's a sense of like, now that this situation is here, I want to do what I can in order to ensure that it grows in like a healthy and sustainable manner, that it's not just something that kind of like we unbridle all this passion and then it fades out very quickly, that we both are able to kind of continue on in our unique and individual paths that we were walking before we came into one another's world, into one another's reality, while we also build this kind of mutual energy between the two of us of like the shared goals, the shared interests, the romance, all of that. They're wanting to be able to kind of like each of you to feed into yourselves individually, but then also to feed into kind of accelerating or strengthening kind of that shared energy, that shared commitment with one another. They also say I'm cutting fake people out of my life. So they may be in a process of, if they were talking to other people, or they'd kind of just, kept the tone as far as like, I'm looking for love. I'm seeking that kind of, that element of someone who really gets me, who really understands me, anything like intentions that they've set out towards the universe. It feels to be something that they're discontinuing, pouring their energy into things like that. They've honed in on you. They see you and they want you. They want this situation. They want this situation to develop and grow. And that involves kind of creating an exclusivity in terms of what they're giving their attention to, what they're kind of feeding into as far as dreams, desires, and expectations. There's been a shift or a pivot to, I'm concentrating my focus on indulging in this situation between the two of us, pouring energy into it in the way in which it can be nurtured to develop and grow, mindful of maybe a tendency to kind of overwhelm situations and then they fall apart, or myself becoming overwhelmed and running in the opposite direction. It feels like they're trying to kind of cut through patterns that in the past have either undermined other types of situations, or again kind of kept them in a state of sort of like, I'm looking for love, I'm looking for the love of my life, I'm looking for that person that brings out the poet, that brings out the romantic, that activates that kind of tender strength within me. They find that within you, or you make them feel so comfortable within who they are in kind of other ways that there's almost a sense of like, perhaps this part of myself as well would be well received in your presence. And in order to kind of make themselves comfortable enough to allow that version of them to surface, it involves sort of moving away from anything that feels very nebulous, very uncertain, that kind of gives them a sense of like conflicted vibes, or just isn't what they're looking for. They found what they're looking for in this situation. There's no further need to kind of look elsewhere. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got P, F, X, N, D, H, Q, K, M, Y, E, I, F, T, P, G, C, G, and Y. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters, including a longer video version of this reading with more cards and more decks. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.